Pilate and the king. Pontius Pilate was on the scene of history about 10 years, all that time in Palestine, an emissary of Rome to the Jews. Many other such officials came and went, but Pilate, because of his encounter with Jesus, is known wherever people read scripture or recite the creed. His origins and end are unknown. One story says he was the illegitimate son of Tyre, king of Mayence, who, after some adventures in Rome, was given the difficult task of governing troublesome Palestine. He apparently did a tolerable job, but several indiscretions, such as hanging a list of the Roman gods in the temple and slaying several men while offering sacrifices, brought his position to a precarious pass. His treatment of Jesus seemed indeed to have been conditioned by his shaky relations with the Jews. After the trial, Pilate stayed on in Palestine another 6 years. He was recalled to Rome, and, except for legendary accounts of his death, is heard from no more. Legend says he was banished from Rome, fled to Lucerne, Switzerland, and lived in solitude on the mountain that bears his name. After some years of despair and depression, he leaped from a precipice into the lake. In our contrapuntal dialogues, we have, using the literary devices available to us, imagined the people of the Passion musing about the moments in their lives in which they came into contact with Jesus. The counterpoint is added by the paralleling thoughts of Jesus. Thus Pilate, in a modest villa on Mount Pilatus, overlooking the clear blue waters of the lake, might have thoughts like these. Pilate is speaking.
Water! How many times must I tell that lazy lad that the basin must be filled with water and to place a towel beside it? Must a man always wash in the places specifically suited for it? It is so odd that I rinse my soiled hands here on the porch. The water of the lake calls to me. I host a silent fear that one day, before the leaves turn color again, I will answer its beckoning call and hurl myself into it. This very morning, Claudia reminded me of our Palestinian tour for Rome. She had another dream in which I was involved, and she sought to warn me of the impending vile act I might perpetrate against myself. The first dream came when we were in Jerusalem during the trial of the Galilean prophet. Then she saw me ending my political career unless I untangled myself from the spider's web woven by that scheming Caiaphas to murder the prophet of Galilee. Water, lad, water!
It was essential that I die in Jerusalem at the hands of the world power. To have died at the hands of the high priest would have meant to die behind his cloistered walls, and thereby the global significance of my atoning sacrifice might all too easily have been lost. Thus it was that Pontius Pilate was drawn into my trial and became the high priest who officiated over the sacrifice, though he was quite a reluctant high priest.
That was the day I sold my soul, and Claudia tried to warn me. By the time her message had reached me, I was committed to my course. It is a basic truth that every magistrate is tempted by the fates to weigh the balances in favor of his own career. They brought the man to me, those scheming leaders of the people. They charged him with subverting the people of the nation, refusing to pay tribute to our noble Caesar, and saying that he himself held office of a king. The whole thing was an obvious frame-up. That tender-eyed prisoner, a threat to Rome? Preposterous! His accusers' eyes betrayed them. Some nefarious scheme was at hand and obviously underway. But the game was politics. The winning move, as I saw it, was to placate and to win. But as I should have known, experienced politician that I was, when others make the opening move and play by a different system, the counter moves are often ineffective. The rules by which we played were not mine, and I felt that I must play a little scheming of my own to beat them at this game in which they played for keeps.
While Caiaphas and company babbled on and on about the charges against me, I took account of what had happened since the rooster had crowed to greet the dawn. Only a few short hours before, I had stood before the Sanhedrin and watched as Caiaphas drew himself up to his highest stature and wailed in mock anguish that I had blasphemed God, that my very own testimony had convicted me of a sin against the first table of the law and the first commandment written upon it. There, in the sacred assembly, he demanded under oath to know if I was the Christ, the Son of the living God. And there in that sacred assembly, I was declared as one who blasphemes the very majesty of God. By the time my trial reached Pontius Pilate, emissary of Rome, the charges had curiously changed to the second table of the law, and I was labeled one who blasphemes kings, having trampled the fourth commandment underfoot by my actions.
The case demanded attention. It was most easily disposed of then and there. 2 charges were filed against the man. 1, he subverted the people, and 2, he stood in the way of the collection of taxes for Caesar. Rather good opening moves, if you ask me. I remember the case of Judas the Galilean, son of Zacchaeus, who not too long ago had become a leader of a rebellion against Rome. He harangued the people to refuse Rome's taxes. Mighty ripples were sent through due to his subversion and disturbed the people. It was highly conceivable that this Jesus of Galilee could have espoused that cause, and that the old rebellion have exploded at any moment. I decided to get down to the cases immediately. "Are you king of the Jews?" I asked him.
King as you use the word or as the Jews use it?
Am I a Jew? But I was studying the board. This man knew how to play the game too. He had posed the question and reduced the answer. I had to seek the truth now on his terms. King as a threat to Rome? Or king as a king of the Jews? Or was there still another possibility? Your own people, the chief priests, brought you here. Why? What have you done?
I am not an earthly king. If I were, my followers would have defended me when I was apprehended in the garden. My kingdom is not of this world.
I knew it. I knew it. A third possibility. Neither king of the Jews nor threat to Rome. Dreamer? Maybe. Visionary? Yes. But no threat and no case. But you are a king, then?
Yes, I was born for that purpose. I came to bring truth to the world. My followers are seekers of truth.
What is truth?
Oh, Pilate, what have you done? You ask me what is truth and you don't wait for my answer? Just a few short hours ago, the high priest had asked truth of me, and when I gave him my answer, he declared me a blasphemer. I demand to know under oath and punishment, he had declared, before the God who judges truth and lies, if you are the Christ, the Son of God. And when I answered him, he set his course to bring about my death by a series of lies delivered under oath to Pilate.
You speak of truth. What is truth?
How alike my judges, and how feeble the mind of man. Caiaphas and Pilate were different in 100 ways, yet in this they were the same. Oh, Pilate was from the east and Caiaphas from the west, one in Roman toga, the other in high priestly garbs. Yet Caiaphas writhed in agony, trying to bring about the most expedient method for my death, and therein he found rest. Pilate, on the other hand, began the trial rather unruffled, but in his own questioning began his own convulsions that brought about my death. Neither gave me credence, neither accepted the all-availing reality that I am the way, the truth, and the life. They saw me as a person of the plains rather than on the heights with them. Why, they saw me as an ordinary man, a subject to be used for their own disposal and their own ends. And so they passed me by on the other side and left me to die of wounds far deeper than the flesh.
I have dealt with thousands of men and thousands of judicial cases. In 2 questions and 2 answers, I was convinced that this man was not guilty as charged. With an eye to getting back to my work and on with my day, I went back to my porch, where Caiaphas and friends waited for my verdict. I made it as plain as I knew how. He is not guilty of any crime. But I wasn't prepared for the screaming and the babble that ensued. This early in the morning, a crowd had gathered already, and that crowd wanted blood.
I had established my credentials, and my case had been acquitted. Pilate had come to my rescue, and I was free. Then I heard the screams from the crowd as Pilate declared his decision, and I knew that this was not the end. Judgment against the sins of the world could not be satisfied this easily. The cup had only been tasted and found bitter, but it was still there to drink. O Father, hold me fast as I drink the bitter stuff that fills this cup.
Water! Water! Must I carry it for myself? I heard out of the corner of the crowd, and I hoped for a moment it would save my day and help me in that hour to keep face with myself and with those animals that were screaming for blood. It turned out that this man was from Galilee. And this was Herod's house, loaned to me for the days of celebration and unrest. And Herod was Tetrarch of Galilee. This Galilean was still protected by the law, and the law provided that a man had a right to a trial in his own province. So I sent him forth to Herod with a suitable note, saying that it seemed to me that he might do me a small favor by handling the case with this Jesus, since he was from his jurisdiction.
The law is said to be benevolent. Like a warm blanket, it protects the innocent and with equal coldness metes out judgment against those who are exposed to its exacting demands. The law is to be man's friend, like an umbrella, to shield him from the beating sun or the driving rain, or man's enemies, if he is exposed to their cries. Caiaphas, the high priest, through his own manipulation, had set me outside the sacred law of my community. And then, by his own clever strategy, had exposed me to the law that governs all men. Pilate, on a technicality, decided to save his own skin by sending me to Herod. There was no interest in the law, in the right and dignity of my person in the court of Herod. I was a plaything to those animals. And to Herod, with his robes and his mocking laughter, he tore at my soul. And he let me know that the law could be ignored if expediency demanded it.
Herod turned out to be a wit, with the prisoner being returned to me decked out in his old robes. And I remember making note that I needed to have Herod in to dinner at my earliest convenience. But the King of the Jews was mine again. Thinking to have the matter done, I determined to play upon the people's love for the underdogs. "Flog him," I ordered. They took him out to the back courtyard. I expected to hear him scream and to call him henceforth when the moaning started. But there was no noise from the back, no crying for mercy or for relief. When far more time than enough for a simple flogging had gone by, I ordered him brought to stand before the gathered crowd. The soldiers, they amused themselves waiting for my orders by twisting together a kind of crown from brambles that they had made and jamming it upon his head, and by hanging Herod's cloak about his shoulders as to add to the grisly humor of the joke. They had overstepped my orders, but that was of little note, because what they had done most kindly made this utterly kindly sight out of him. And it suited my purposes so much the better. I took him before the people on the porch, sent him to the balustrade, and paused, a dramatic pause, and made a gesture to include his crowned head, his bleeding body, and his bowed back. His hands were bound, his feet were bared. "Behold the man," I said.
So Pontius Pilate had set me outside of the civil law. He had declared me persona non grata, an outlaw to the law, in the fateful decision to have me flogged. He had found no guilt in me. He had never rescinded that decision. He placed me outside the realm of all law. Through the official legate of the Roman Empire, the law spoke to me. "I do not know you or where you come from. Apart from me and be accursed." Over and over, the law screamed at me, "You do not exist," as the lashes beat down upon my back. The crown of thorns and the mocking voices of the soldiers declared, "You do not matter." The very people that I had deemed to love, with their cries for my death, had set me outside my last hope, the laws of love and mercy. Hold me steady, Father, for I have taken another sip of the bitter stuff that fills this cup, and I am terrified at the power of it, but I must drink for the salvation of the world. In the midst of pressure, I comfortably held my own,
at least when I was younger. There was still a ruse by which I could extricate myself from this all-consuming web. Barabbas, arch enemy of every man's security, murderer, insurrectionist, a threat to peace, was available for bartering. Water, slave, water! Do you not hear me? The custom of releasing a prisoner at the Passover was about to be observed, and I would free this man.
The Passover was hard upon us. Since the days of Moses and the first Exodus, at the command of my father, the people picked out a lamb without spot or blemish. The blood was drawn from the lamb and smeared on the posts of their doors, and the angel of death, seeing the blood, would pass over. Little did the crowd gathered there realize that they were making choice for sacrifice for the sins of all. The proper sacrificial lamb was chosen when they cried out for my crucifixion and the release of Barabbas, blemished as he was by his gross misdeeds. Once again, the cup is at my lips, and once again, I must drink of its vile potion. Oh, Father, hold my hand.
I want done with this whole miserable thing. I signaled for water and a bowl to be brought, and with that ancient sign, I absolved myself of guilt of the murder. I washed my hands before them all. They took the Galilean, half dead already, and they led him down the street to Crucifixion Hill. I think they called it Golgotha. Word came before lunch that he was hanging on the cross, and that the centurion in charge had included the 2 robbers condemned to die by order of the state. At the 10th hour, they came begging to me for the body of the Nazarene. It was incredible that he should already be dead. But if that were the case, the body they could have. Water! Must I fetch it myself?